What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up the Rockshaker 6.5 powered subwoofer. They come in two different colors of black and classic wood, but the setup for each is the exact same. Now to use your subwoofer, you can take any home theater receiver or amplifier that has RCA line outputs. Some receivers or amplifiers actually have designated RCA outputs labeled sub out. So to connect the sub to the receiver, I can take my RCA cable, plug one end into the RCA sub output or line output, then take the other end and plug it into the RCA line input on the back of your sub. Now in case your amplifier doesn't have RCA outputs, you can always use the high-level inputs and outputs on the sub to connect it to your amplifier. So for this setup, I'm going to take two sets of speaker wire. I'm going to take one end and plug it into the output terminals on my amplifier for the front speakers. On some amplifiers, they're characterized as A or B, so for today we're going to go with A. So I'm going to make sure that the red wires go into the positive terminals and the black wire goes to the negative terminals. Then I'm going to take the other ends and plug them into the high-level inputs on the back of the sub. And I also want to be sure that the speaker wire coming from the left terminal of my amp goes into the left input on the sub, and the speaker wire coming from the right terminal goes into the right input of the sub. Now from here, we're going to want to connect our speakers to the subwoofer so that we finish the chain. So for that, I'm going to take some more speaker wire. I'm going to plug one end into the left and right high-level output terminals on the back of the sub. Then I'm going to take the other end and plug them into my speakers, but again I want to make sure that the speaker wire coming from the left output goes to my left speaker and the speaker wire coming from the right output goes to the right speaker. Now again, this setup only applies if your amplifier doesn't have the RCA outputs, but if your amplifier does have these outputs, we recommend using the setup we showed you before. So now let's take a look at the controls here for our sub. At the bottom we have the power switch to turn the sub on or off, so let's go ahead and turn it on. Above that we have the volume knob to control how much volume comes out of our sub, and right below that we have the frequency knob to control what frequencies come out of our subwoofer using the low pass filter. So for example, if I set this knob to 75 Hertz, everything from 75 Hertz and below will come out of the subwoofer. So this is a knob you can use based on your preference of how much low end you want to hear coming out of the sub for your setup. So right next to these knobs we have the phase switch here from 0 degrees to 180 degrees. And what this will do is flip the phase of the subwoofer so that the sub is hitting on time with everything else in your setup. So for example, if you're listening to music with the subwoofer and it sounds like the kick drum is going in instead of thumping out, you'll want to flip the switch to the opposite direction to flip the phase so that the kick drum is hitting on time with everything else. This is also important to use if you're using two subwoofers in your setup. Right below that we have the auto switch, and when this is turned on, the subwoofer will actually power on as soon as it receives signal from the amp. And after 50 minutes of no signal coming from the amplifier, the subwoofer will automatically turn off. Lastly, we also have the RCA line output that we can use to expand our setup even further with additional speakers or subwoofers. So once you have your sub all set up and ready to go, you can move it onto the floor so you're hearing all of that low end. If you want even more bass enhancement, we recommend placing the sub in a corner of your room, but really you can move it around to whatever suits best for your setup. I have my phone connected to the amp through Bluetooth, so let's play some music to hear how the sub sounds in our setup. Here we go. Oh yeah, you're really hearing that low end there. Let's wait for that bass drop coming in. Whoa! Oh my gosh, that's crazy. It's really shattering the room, really shaking the room. Wow, nice. Now you can also use the Rockshaker 6.5 with your audio interface and your recording setup. To do that, we're first going to connect our audio interface to our computer. Then you're going to want to go into the sound settings of your computer or DAW and be sure that the output and input are set to your interface. Now to connect the subwoofer to the interface, I'm going to take an RCA to dual 1/4-inch cable. I'm going to take the 1/4-inch ends and connect the white to the left and the red to the right. Then you're going to take the RCA ends and plug it into the RCA input of your sub and match what we did before with the white going to the left and the red going to the right. Now because the interface we're using today only has a left and a right output, we're going to want to connect the sub to our full range speakers so we have the full range of sound coming out of our mix. So to do that, I'm gonna take an RCA cable. I'm gonna take one end and plug it into the RCA outputs of my sub. Then I'm gonna connect the other end into the RCA inputs of my speakers. From here, we can turn on our sub and tune it the way we want with the volume and frequency knob. Turn on our speakers and make sure the main mix knob is raised on our interface. And now we're all set to hear everything coming out of our speakers and our sub. Yeah, there we go. And we can even use the main mix knob from our interface to control the overall volume. So all the way down, you get nothing. Then we can raise it back up. Oh yeah, very cool. Now with this setup, we have our interface running into our subwoofer first, and then from there we have our speakers connected. But you can also have a reverse setup by connecting your speakers to the interface first, and then connecting the sub to your speakers as long as they have an RCA or line output. Now if your interface or mixer has separate outputs or an aux send, you can also use these to connect your subwoofer, and this way you have independent volume control of your sub opposite for your speakers, so you can mix the two together however you want. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your Rockshaker 6.5 powered subwoofer. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.